this is a really an interesting and difficult story to deal with. We have a woman on the line right now that is asking for changes in the law regarding mental health, and she has an incredibly sad story to tell and talk about. On the line is Allison Belius. Do I say that properly, Allison?
Yep, Belius.
Okay, Belius. So tell us your story and why you want changes in mental health laws.
Well, I think a lot of people remember about 5.5 years ago, my daughter Lauren was murdered by my then boyfriend, David Trebilcock, and Cheryl. Lauren was 6 years old, and he just walked in on her while she was sleeping in her bed with her twin sister one morning and shut himself in the room with them and stabbed her to death. Went to trial, and David was found not guilty due to reasons of mental defect and was sentenced to 1 year in a mental hospital. And after that, he was to be reevaluated. If he was still found to be dangerously mentally ill, they would retain him for 2 more years at a time. And now every 2 years, he's due for a reevaluation. And if at one of these evaluations they decide that he's been rehabilitated enough, he could be released back into society with no charges against him.
You know, we see this. We see this throughout the. First of all, I can't imagine what you went through, and I feel terrible that we're even having to talk to you about this. But obviously, you're taking your loss, and your goal is to do something, taking something from this horrific incident, and do something good. So for that, we thank you, and I it's hard to even conceive what you've been going through.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a tough few years here trying to get through this, and especially with the way things turned out, it just felt like every worst case scenario there was is what turned out to be, and the trial was just the last nail in the coffin for us. It just made everything 100 times worse. The sentence is just like a punishment for the victims, almost as much as it is for the man who did it. So.
We're talking about New York State laws. Now, you go to other states, and for instance, we see Texas, for instance, capital punishment. It still exists, and you see a lot of people put to death. And listen, if you can go in and commit a horrific act, if you could kill a group of people, then clearly you're mentally ill. To me, that is just a given. That's a given. But you still are you're liable for what you did. I mean, you still, it happened. You did it, and I don't know how we can walk away and say, all right, well, we're going to reevaluate every 2 years. And I know it's the law, and I'm not blaming any judges or juries or anybody. The judge, of course, in sentencing. But and what you're saying is, okay, it's time to change the law.
It is, yeah. That's been our point all along through this anyway, because we've never really believed in the diagnosis that David was given through the court system when this happened. But even still, that was always our point, was you show me one man who has intentionally taken the life of a child and tell me that he was sane at the time that he did that.
Right.
So explain to me why there are hundreds of paranoid schizophrenics in prison who are getting medicated in prison and managing just fine, but this one has to go to a mental hospital. I don't understand that either.
And one would contest that if you have any sanity, you're going to show insanity during trial. If you lack sanity, you're just going to be straightforward and with no remorse whatsoever, right? And so there's almost a reverse when you think about it, that anybody with any sanity is going to try to save themselves. Right, they're gonna go down that road, and they're gonna try to do everything they can to convince everyone that they are insane.
Allison, let me ask you this. You know more about this than I do. I know it's different when the victim is a child, but it's possible, had he been found guilty, he might have served, 15 to life. So he'd be eligible to be a free man again after maybe 15 years or 20 years. But in this case, it's
25 to life was the sentence.
20. It would have been 25. Okay,
which is not enough. I think it should be
sure.
Yeah, that's it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But in this case, it seems like they could possibly keep him in an institution for the rest of his life.
They could.
versus he would be a free man in 20 or 25 years. Can you comment on that, or any thoughts on what I just tried to explain there?
They could keep him for life. That is one of the things that they said to try to make us feel better when this was over, was, at least where he is now, we could keep him for life. He wouldn't get out on good behavior. He'd have to show that he's actually been treated successfully, which with paranoid schizophrenia is not usually an outcome that you get.
Right.
But
and that's what it was. They determined he was a paranoid schizophrenic. That's the
diagnosis that they came up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask you, Allison? Were there warning signs that you saw? And we all see. We all have somebody in our lives. Maybe it's just me, but I think most people have someone in their lives, and the thought is, crazy but not dangerous.
Right.
Were there what were the warning signs for you?
There weren't many. We were together for a year and a half. I'd known him longer than that, and until about 5-6 days before it happened, there were no warning signs at all.
Mm-hmm.
He just seemed like a nice guy, never argued with me, just real peaceful relationship, low-key, nothing, not even the minor arguments.
Wow.
Until that last week. And then he started saying some things that week that had me concerned about where his head was at, but even during that week, I never dreamed he would do what he did. My fear, if anything, was that he was really beating up on himself, and I thought that he might hurt himself if he had ever hurt anyone, but never what he did.
There was never any here to be. With no signs that a person could just turn, and boy, that's scary.
And there was never any early violence against your daughter or your kids at all?
No, never.
Yeah.
No, the kids loved him, and I was always around. It was said we'd been together for a while, but I was never one to leave my kids alone with him when I went to work or anything like that. I was always around, so I never saw anything. The kids never said anything or showed any signs that there was anything suspicious or not right going on. They followed him around. They liked him. They had fun, and he actually, I said he acted like another kid in the house. He played with the kids. Not inappropriately, but he just always
had
a good relationship with the kids.
And just one, all of a sudden, falling off, whether the stop taking the meds or whatever happened. And so for you, you've had to live with this. It's you have how many? You have 3 kids?
3, yeah.
Yeah, and the goal, of course, for you is to make the changes in the law, and specifically, what changes do you want to see?
Well, what we're looking for is a couple of things, and one thing we'd always want to see is that any murder against a child should be considered first degree. We have it now for our first responders and police officers and other people who are killed in the line of duty of their jobs, but these people get up every morning knowing that there's a chance that things could go badly for them by the end of the day. It's a risk that they take on willingly and knowingly, and of course we never want to see it happen, but they understand what is involved with their job. Where my little girl was sleeping in her bed. She did not take that responsibility on knowingly. She was an innocent child asleep in her bed. So definitely she deserves to have first degree. And the other main thing that we are looking for is something to change with these insanity defenses, so that people don't feel like they can walk in and use that as a get-out-of-jail-free card or anything like that. And, it's terrifying to us that there is a possibility he could get out.
Sure.
He could get a new doctor who decides that he's done really well and is happy with his progress and thinks that leaving on medication would be perfectly safe.
Well,
and
you had a year and a half of good progress of no warning signs. No, so what prevents the click from happening again? There's something to be said for a person being a menace to society and a danger to society. And now somebody tells me that Senator Griffo is sponsoring Lauren Sylvia's law to change the law so people found culpable of a crime can still be held accountable regardless of their mental status. And that's something that you would like to see advanced through the legislature?
Definitely. That's what we want to see. There should just, it's like we were saying earlier, whether you're mentally ill or you're perfectly sane, if you commit this crime, there has to be consequences.
Yeah.
You can't do this thinking, well, maybe in a couple of years I can get out.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to see is a law where even if they are found to be not guilty for that reason, they still have to serve a full sentence. So say the sentence for second-degree murder is 25 to life. He should have to be confined somewhere for at least 25 years.
Yeah.
Regardless of where that is.
Right. Maybe
we're fine if he's in a mental hospital, but we want to know that he's going to stay there, that my kids don't have to worry about him getting out in 2 or 3 years while they're still young and well, he's still dangerous.
Yeah, I like. I mean, certainly, if the person needs treatment, then they get the treatment. But you still have to stay in confinement until not just a crime, but such a heinous crime.
Yeah, terrible.
And then I'm assuming this is pre-recorded, but Thursday you will be on Dr. Phil pleading your case here.
Yes.
That was pre-recorded.
Yep, we taped it last Wednesday, and it will air Thursday morning at 10, and then few more times throughout the day.
All right.
Allison, just if I can ask you one last question. Did you ever have a conversation after the fact with David Trebilcock? And did he ever, not that there's an explanation or a justification, was he ever, quote, with it again, where he, like, apologized for what he did? And
or remorseful in any way?
Did you ever have any conversations with him after?
I was never even given the chance to have a conversation with him again after. I know that during the trial or before the trial, he did confess on tape with one of the state troopers that he understood what he did.
Yeah.
That it was a kid. He knew that. He said, she was just a kid, and I deserve to go to jail for the rest of my life for what I did to her sister and to her mother for taking her away from her. I deserve it. He basically asked to go to prison. And
so he was aware.
What he did.
Yeah.
That what he did was wrong.
Yeah,
even if Lauren's Law does become a reality, it's not going to change anything for us. David will still
have
the same rights he has right now, and it won't change anything. But
do you get like on parole, families get to go forward and come forward and basically testify in front of the parole board and give their opinion on why they feel this person should not be released? Do you get that opportunity in an insanity situation?
I think theoretically we will. So far, we've actually been pretty lucky. When David's been up for reevaluation and has had the right to come in for a hearing, he's waived them. So we haven't actually had to see him since that first evaluation that was done 6 months later. But
so at this point, he's sane enough to say, what I have done, I do not deserve to be out.
Right.
I would think that if this happened to me, you're normal, you snap and you kill a child, you stab a child to death, I would be afraid of that I might snap again. I would not want to be, and maybe that's what he's thinking. God, I hope that's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. I know the first year he went in for the 6 months, and then he came out a year later and was given this chance. And at first, when he was up for the reevaluation in 1 year, he did want to come to court and fight to get out. I think somebody basically told him along the way that it's not going to happen, so you might as well give it up now. And so he did end up waiving it at the last minute, and then the last one was a year and a half ago, and he waived that one.
I hate to say, listen, you lost your child in a horrific way. You now, every 2 years, have to go through this. I mean, that is a punishment that is not deserved, and it's not going to change. No matter whether this law gets changed or not, you're still going to have to go through this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
The rest of his life.
We're going to have to do this, and that's why we want to try to make sure nobody else has to do it, because it's happening more and more these days. You see it a lot more on the news. We've seen it locally with the Bungalow case. A couple years later, same exact thing all over again.
Yeah.
And it's getting out of hand.
All right. Allison, be watching, if you will, to Dr. Phil on Thursday. Check your local listings to see when that program airs on your local station. But that'll dig in. And then the other thing I'd ask is that you contact your local legislators, your state legislators, and tell them this is something you got to push forward. This has to
Yes.
happen. There needs to be change, and this case is a perfect example of it. So, all right,
I've
Allison.
actually got a couple of legislators here, too, that Joe Griffo says would be great ones to contact if
Okay.
anybody's
All
interested
right.
in writing.
And who should people write to?
Oh, I've got New York Senator Andrew Lanza,
Mm-hmm.
who's the head of the Senator Codes Committee,
Yep.
and the Assemblyman Joe Lento, head of Assembly Codes.
Okay.
So those would be two great guys to start the ball and start writing to. So.
Reach
We
out.
also have a petition on change.org
Okay.
called Lauren Sylvia's Law, and that's creeping up on 14,000 signatures, and we're hoping after our show airs later this week that number will grow a lot more.
All right. Lauren Sylvia's Law is what you want to look for. All right, Allison, listen, I'm sorry for what you are going through and what you've had to go through and what your daughter went through, but we thank you for standing up the way you're standing up here today.
Well, thank you.
All right. We'll break and come back here.